Hey, hello, and welcome back to GoodKnit Kisses. Happy finished Friday. I am your host, Kristen, of course. And today we have the boyfriend hat coming out this afternoon. This hat right here. We have the Loom knit hat, and this one is the needle knit version that we showed last week. Sorry, excuse me. So this is the needle knit version here. This is the loom knit version. And they're two different sizes because we actually are showing a women's size and a man's size. So both needle knit hats and loom knit hats have two sizes. But I wanted to be able to speak with you guys about it today and answer whatever questions I can. Of course, our patterns come out on Friday afternoon. It's usually 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. It's just what we do. So if you're catching this later on, it's already out. So thank you for joining me here live, and to the people on the replay, thank you as well. Be sure and ask your questions either way, and or look in the comments below to see if someone asked before you, and see if you can find your answer or respond and have a conversation. It's all about community. Welcome everyone. I'm gonna say hello to everybody who's jumping on live right now. Hey Zane and Judy Richardson. I almost called you Richard. Hey Judy, how you doing? Hey Courtney and Aaron, how's that baby coming along? Hey Lori, hey April. I am so happy y'all are here today. I'm getting notifications. Somebody commented on one of my photos. All right, so today is the boyfriend hat. Every time I say the boyfriend, I remember this musical that I saw from my old high school. It was like the year before I came, or a couple years before, and it was called The Boyfriend. Has anybody ever seen the musical The Boyfriend? The Boyfriend. That's all I remember from the thing, and that my friend was in it, and she was really good. Anyway, the boyfriend hat, and we have women's and men's sizes, or small man's and regular. So you can actually make different sizes in this hat. I will tell you that this is an intermediate hat. So for loom knitters who are very familiar with the with this figure 8 stitch, this is not a knit stitch, this is not a crochet stitch, this is the diamond lace stitch that is also nicknamed mock crochet or the figure 8. Figure 8 is the nickname for it on the knitting loom when it's worked in a flat panel, because on the top, when you look on the top side, it kind of looks like you're making a figure 8 across the across those pegs. So hey Donna, hey Valerie and Helen, I'm glad you're here. So this is not a beginner pattern. However, you can make it that way, and you can make you could basically just make something in the round and then do a nice big bulky top on here and not reduce this. But I've got this really nice reduced or decreased crown here. We're shaping this top, and you can see that the shaping includes the patterning. You can see a little bit of the line of the decrease, but it's made to be as nearly invisible as we can. But on a knitting loom, you have to do a lot of moving around. So I'm primarily suggesting that you use the X loom, the Cindy Wood Universal X loom. If you have that, I have one here. Let me just pop mine out so you can see it. This is the X loom. It doesn't have to be this giant version. I just happen to have a bigger version. I'm putting this size of hat on here, so that tells you how much I'm not using. But if you have the X loom, it makes the reducing much easier. I will have a video on how to do it on the X loom, and then crossing my fingers, I have it all ready to go and start being reduced on the all-in-one. So if you have noticed, we put out 4 videos already. We put out 4 videos, and what the 4 videos does, I'm just going to kind of leave this in the frame. What the 4 videos do are, we did a chain cast on here on the X loom in the round. We did a chain cast on in the all-in-one loom in the round, and we did them both clockwise and counterclockwise and the all-in-one loom, clockwise and counterclockwise, depending upon how you like to knit it. Okay. I also have a little hack for those of you who have done the chain cast on before, a nice little finishing technique that you can build into your cast on from the beginning and use it on any other project that you are using the chain cast on and the round on. So I tried to make the video mostly not about the boyfriend hat. I do mention it in there, but absolutely give it a watch, even if you're not going to try this hat, because I'd really like you to, and I think that you'll find a nice new hack for you. I also talk about setting up, let me get this out of the way. Oh, this loom is in the way. This particular loom right here, I talk about setting it up for a reason, not on the bolts. And I talk about that in the video today. So, or today, I uploaded them already. So they should be out. They were out yesterday at 2 Central for me, at my time. So that video is out. The video that comes out today at 2 o'clock alongside of with the pattern is live. So if you've noticed that the pattern link on that video was not live, like meaning you can't click on it, you get a 404 error. It's not actually an error right now. It's just that it hasn't launched yet. So that link will be live. It'll go live this afternoon. If you get the error and then the pop-up comes for the newsletter and you have not joined our newsletter, be sure and do that, because we do send out newsletters and we don't inbox you every day. No. We don't even do it very many times, 2 times a week. It's usually like once a week or whatever. We have patterns and something that we want to show you guys. So we try not to kind of slam that. And there's a privacy statement and everything too. So be sure and click on that newsletter to get more information. So what comes out this afternoon are clockwise and counterclockwise versions on both looms. The all-in-one and the X loom are the main stitch pattern, which is the diamond lace stitch to do this main stitch pattern. Okay. The decreased crown, the more complicated version, the part that gives you this nice, cool, smooth top. That comes out in 1 week. So if you're catching this on the replay a week later, today, what are we? We're the 25th. We're October 25th, 2019 right now. So if you're catching this much later, it's already out. But for you guys live with me right now, it comes out next week. And that'll give you plenty of time to cast on, to do your main stitch pattern, and even change colors. I'm debating on throwing in this color changing on the reduced crown video, but I might actually give myself some more work than I actually told Joanne. I might actually show you changing color on here, but it would be like a super quick video. So there's really not much to say beyond change the color. I mean, there's a couple of little extra things you can do, but anyway, I'm debating if I'm going to throw in an extra thing on here, but basically you just start adding the color in. If you use a color changing yarn, then you don't have to deal with it, but if you want to do this little accent, that's in there. Okay, so what happens from here on is what we're going to do next week, and this is the reduced crown, or shaping the top. Now, like I said, I recommend the X loom. The X loom that I used is the 5/8 loom. Okay, so it's 5/8 of gauge. It is a large gauge loom. Now, all-in-one knitting board, as well as Cindywood, has other gauges, right? They have a 3/8 gauge X loom too. They don't have, let me just talk about the X loom. That way I'm not going back and forth. So for those of you who want to use the, hang on, gotta fix this alert that's coming up on my phone. Hold on. I have physical therapy later in a minute. Okay. Not in a minute. Anyway, the 5/8 loom for the X loom has one single peg on this wedge that moves up and down. It moves inside here, right? But the 1/2 inch and the 3/8 gauge looms, they have like two pegs on the end here. You'll still be able to follow those same principles. I believe, yeah, I had looked into all of that. So don't be thrown off if you decide to use that. It'll still be relevant to you. However, when you want to do if you're using the all-in-one, whether you're using the 3/8 that I'm showing right here, or you want to use the 5/8 that's brand new from them. Knitting Board just came out with them, and people have already started receiving them. I tested this. Sorry, don't deviate, Kristen. If you want to use the all-in-one or a similarly adjustable loom, like a Kiss loom or something that you have sliders on either side, make sure that you can slide both of them, because you're going to do a lot more moving and juggling of stitches. You are going to have to walk some stitches down kind of in the middle portion. They're not just on the ends. If I did it like that, where I have double decreases on either side, 1, 2, 3, 4, I could do that, but it would not have this super cool, like totally even look, right? Sorry, you see my tail I haven't finished weaving in. So I just want you guys to know that, and yeah, so I do recommend, like I said, I recommend the X Loom, but the all-in-one you can absolutely do. I want beginners to know that it's okay if it's a little harder and you're learning something, and everybody's learning something, because I just learned this. Years ago, I had figured out, I did a video. Actually, if you go see the video, it's not how I typically do them, because when I had a full-time working job, I actually worked for my dad, and I did it in my break room at work, and I was showing how I had figured out how to increase and decrease in a flat panel in this particular stitch. I actually had to go back. I'm just telling y'all some background information, but I had to go back, and I was like, how did I do my decreases back then? Because I hadn't worked with a stitch in a while. I had been doing other things. And I went and looked, and I really studied it, and then I was like, oh, okay. And so I tried some different things, and then I worked it. So I worked it on the loom, and then I worked it out on needles, and I'm like, shut up, I can do this. So I want you to know that you can make different sizes too, in different weights. No, I'm not teaching this. Yes, if you want more information, I will give it to you. I will tell you, this is a super bulky weight yarn. This is more of like a premium, I'm a premium. We're using a premium loom. This is more like a preemie size hat. It's tiny. I mean, I haven't measured it or whatever. This was actually just meant to be a total test. This was my first test hat, and it was so superb that I decided, this is a go. We're going to do this. So if you don't know, it's much easier to test things in a baby size or even guess. I like to make, it's like a virtual swatch. It's like my version of a swatch to make a baby hat size and test it versus like a larger size. So this one only has a few rounds of decreases. So, I say that to mean, let me see, I'm going to scroll up. So, what this is I cast it on, in my chain cast on, and then I knit to a certain length, and then I decided to try my decreased crown method. Okay. So when I worked it out, writing it down in the pattern that will be coming out this afternoon. Sorry, let me give it an extra moment. I had a phone call come in, so it cut everybody off. So hopefully it's caught back up now. Okay, so let me start over. When I did this hat, it only needed a few rounds of decrease. If you deviate, if you change the cast on to try a different size of hat, like say you want to do one for your 11-year-old or your 6-year-old, if you want to try different sizes, absolutely go for it. Use that. If you have a certain number of stitches that you like to do for your own hat, for your own size, you're like, oh, I normally use 36 pegs on a 5/8 gauge loom, if you have one like that, you know, or whatever, then you can totally try that. I'm going to give you a few tips today. At some point, we might actually do a whole blog on it, and I might actually put this video in there. But I want to tell you this, and I do have some notes, a short amount of notes, for the 3/8 gauge, loom in the pattern. okay? But the main pattern is the 5/8, and I give 2 numbers for that for the women's and the men's size. But I did give some notes as to how, like, the numbers that you might want to cast on if you're using a 3/8. I will say the reason why I did the 3/8 is because this is the needle version, right? Oh, by the way, it does show a little color jog here. So, and my color jog in this one is right here. So it's kind of hidden. It kind of goes meh, like that, but that's how it is. I just want y'all to see that, like, for real, that's what it is. But the reason why I did a 3/8 at all is because I was trying to get the same gauge. You can see that this looks similar, right? So that's why. Okay. All these notes in my brain. Okay. If you try a different yarn weight than I used, or a different cast on number, which is really going to affect you the most, then I want you to know the best practice is to do something divisible by 8. 8 is the magic number. 8 is a magic number because when it comes to decreasing the crown, it will work with the instructions. Yay. And then if you're like, I've only done 2 decreases and my hat's super small, or 3 decreases, and it seems like it's probably okay, it probably is okay. If it's reduced you significantly down to where you only have like 8 to 16 stitches left, then go for it. If you get it off the loom and it's like super pointy, then you probably went around too much, and you can just kind of pull off a round or 2 and then just loop your yarn through and then pull it and finish it. So that I wanted you to know that it's okay to deviate. It's okay to try things. Like I said, you can change different yarns too. This is a super bulky weight yarn. Let me talk about the weights of yarn. Okay, I'm going to get to all your questions in a moment, but be patient with me because I may actually answer your question or may have answered your question. So I want to kind of get through a few things before I look at your questions. Okay, so the primary yarn that I used in this pattern is, turning it around. This is going to be in reverse. Sorry, it's flipped. But this is from Red Heart. It's called An Italian Story Vera. I think that's how you say it, Vera or Vera. So An Italian Story, Vera, and then this one is I think it's latte or something. Yeah, it's latte, and then Pietra is like a charcoal gray color that's used for that accent. Okay, so there is conflicting information online. I did not know that I picked a controversial yarn. We had this meaning Joanne and I had this super extended conversation about this very yarn because if you go on to, if you go look on the label, it says, quite literally, it is a bulky 5-weight yarn. And I had told her, I said, this looks and feels like a bulkier worsted weight yarn, like a medium weight yarn. I said it feels like it's a super light number 5. Okay? If you go on some websites, it says that it's a 4, and some say it's a 5. Yeah, so I think on Amazon, there was a link on Amazon that actually set to this pattern, to this. It actually said from, I think Yarnspirations was selling it or something, and they were showing it as a 4. Anyway, don't know why I picked it. So let's move on. So you can use a medium 4-weight yarn. It's totally cool. I want to show you a sample. I have to reach behind me. Hold on. Ta-da! I still haven't blocked this yet, but this sample was my knit sample on needles, and that styrofoam was making a weird noise. This was on needles, and it worked in the same size or similar looking stitches to the, it's a different gauge, to the needle version that I did with this yarn. I just had more stitches per inch here. So this particular one is actually a number 4 weight yarn. This is a medium weight yarn from, let's see if I can reach one. Oh, they're right behind me. This is Red Heart Chic Sheep. What's funny about this is I've actually said before that this number 4 weight yarn, this medium weight yarn from Red Heart, to me feels like a 3, or like it feels like a bulkier 3. So this is kind of on the lightweight side of a medium, and this is on the lightweight side of a bulky. What's my dill pickle? I don't know. But I will say that you can make a squash. Lord have mercy. Hold on, I need some water. You can make a swatch. You can make a swatch on your loom in a flat panel. It'll be fine. I say make at least a 6x6 swatch because it's easier to measure, and you do need a hard measuring tool, like this one. Don't use one when you're measuring gauge. There's like a little thing. Where is my stinking tape measure? Where are you? These tape measures and even fabric tape measures can actually lose their, they can have a little more elasticity, and they kind of give out in, over time. And so the number could actually change. I know it sounds weird, but a hard ruler is your best method to have the most accurate swatches. I know swatches are a dirty word for people sometimes, but you can also make a little baby hat sample if you wanted to do that. And this gives you the most real way of looking at it. So what you want to do is you put your gauge on there, and you count the stitches, and see how many stitches across it is. Now, you'll notice they're weird to look at, right? So see how it kind of looks like this little L shape here? Doop. Okay, so from this to this is 1 stitch. So if you start measuring at the leading edge of this stitch, like right before it begins, and then go all the way over to the leading edge, right where this ends of this stitch, that's 1 stitch. Now you're not going to stretch it out and measure it, of course, but when it's sitting here like this and you're looking at it, be sure that you're measuring from here to here, and not counting this little stitch in between or anything. So you want to be really careful about how you're measuring. And then once you find out exactly how many stitches are in 1 inch, you can look at the circumference that I have listed for the women's size and the men's size, and you can figure out how many stitches you need to count on having. So you want to say if it's an 18-inch circumference, you're going to multiply that times how many stitches per inch, not in 4 inches, but how many stitches per inch that you got. And then that is your number, and then round it up to the nearest 8 stitches. Okay, you can round it up. If it's very close, you could round it down a little bit. By the way, these hats are nice and stretchy. They have very much negative ease to them. This one has a lot of give to it. It's a very stretchy stitch. It's kind of almost an E-wrapped sort of stitch. What else do I want to tell you? I feel like I'm missing something. What else do I want to tell you? Yeah, and then the rows don't... Oh, I know what I was going to say. When I said don't worry about the 4 inches, you can measure out 4 inches and then divide that number by 4. So like measure out 4 inches. You can mark it off with a toothpick or something, and then count how many stitches there are, and then just divide that by 4, and that will tell you very accurately how many stitches per inch you have. If you get 3.5 stitches per inch, if you get 5 stitches per inch, 4.5, use whatever number that is, and then multiply it times the circumference that you are wanting. Okay, that goes for other hats, and including, you can look at the hat chart that I've got on GoodKnit Kisses. We have charts that talk about different hat sizes for different people. Multiply that out and round it to the nearest 8. If you're like, Kristen, I don't want to do 8 and I don't want to do your special decrease crown, then that's fine. You don't have to do that. But you are going to need a number that's divisible by 2. Because you have to have an even number of stitches in this hat. So, anyway, what else do I need to tell you? I think I'm done on my end. I'm going to look at your questions and see. I'm just looking at how much time I have. Okay, that gives me about 15 minutes to talk to you guys about questions. So let me scroll past. Be sure and while I'm looking at questions, write any questions you have. Let me see if I can answer that as it pertains to this hat. Again, it comes out this afternoon at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. April says, are there any cooler fibers that can be used for this hat? My husband sweats easily. Yeah, I mean, you could, I mean, I couldn't try a cotton hat. I mean, I didn't try a cotton. You could try cotton. You can use acrylic. I just happened to pick this one. It has a wool alpaca content. But yeah, you can totally use acrylic. This one's all wool. This one is all acrylic. This one is, I believe this one is the anti-pilling from Premier, the Everyday Bulky. And so this one is, I believe it's 100% acrylic. So whatever you choose to use, that's for you. I'm not sure about cotton, but boy, I would love to know. Would anyone like to test one? Because personally, wouldn't these make great chemo caps? Like, they're nice and airy. They're stretchy. Honestly, they're super comfortable. I mean, I like them. They're like a kind of a skull cap, a toque, you know, like, anyway, I had this weird line. By the way, I have this weird line on here because, well, I haven't blocked it either, but I made this on needles. And when I did my original video, I had actually showed how to do it in the round. And then I stopped for like a month and a half right there. And this is what I knit on camera. And then I'm a looser knitter when I'm not like talking and teaching. And so this is like super tight right here. So it tells you tension is very important. Sorry, I keep not looking at the camera. I'm looking at my reflection here because I can see the line. But anyway, it's super comfy. My husband loves it. He's like, when are you going to be done telling people about my hat so I can actually wear it? Because this is his. Anyway, soon, honey. Very soon. Very soon. I need it for one more week. It's like cold here today in Texas. So he's probably like, I need it. All right, going on to the next question. Judy, I'm fine. I can't wait for both needle and loom knit. Yeah, the needle knit pattern is already actually out. Oh, and you've started knitting with needles too. That's awesome. Wait, I can't wait to see that, Judy. Y'all be sure. And when you make it, of course, you can post them in our comments. But if you want to post them to the GoodKnit Kisses wall on our page, then maybe I could share them. And of course, we have our GoodKnit Kisses Loom Knit and Craft Club group. So the GoodKnit Kisses Facebook group we have. Or you can tag me on Instagram. That would be really cool. Erin says, is this flatter in the round? Can it be done both ways? This is in the round. The decreases that I have written are written for in the round. I will not be doing a flat panel written version. I don't want to because I think this works really well. I think this is ideal. There is a lot more gymnastics that you're doing with the all-in-one loom, but the X loom is super ideal for this. So, oh yeah. And then I was going to say, if you are deviating from the pattern, you're just going to have to use your own discretion to how long this part should be before you do the decrease. So, let's see. I keep having this alert pop up. Okay. Huge, but still really compact. Yeah, that X loom is funny like that. Reasoning for the preference of the X loom. I think I've answered that question already. Alicia says, Wake Up America is asking for preemie hats until December, but their Facebook page, but it's on their Facebook page and group. Yeah, so check that out. That's a good idea. How many pegs? You'll get that in the pattern today. I don't think I'm going to go into how many pegs, right now, but there is a men's and a women's version. If you are not familiar with looking at patterns with sizing, like 2 or more sizes, the first number that you always see in the pattern is going to be the smaller size, and then any extra sizes are going to be in parentheses right next to that number. So if you see a number and no parentheses, then whatever number that is pertains to both sizes. Whenever you see a parentheses added, then if you're making the larger size, then you need to use the number that's in the parentheses and ignore the one to the left, because that has to do with the smaller size. So say if I say knit to 4 inches or 5 inches or whatever, and then you see in parentheses a larger number, or I would never do the same number, but a larger number, then depending upon the size of object you're making, you want to look in either the parentheses for the larger size or the smaller size to the left of that. If you ever see, I don't have it in this pattern, but if you ever see in parentheses 2 numbers, so you see a number and then a comma and then another number, that means that you have actually 3 sizes in that pattern. And so if you're making the middle size, you would use the first number in the parentheses first and then the next number. And sometimes if you see that number repeated twice, like say it says knit to 6 inches and then parentheses, it'll say 8,8. That means for both the 2 upper level sizes, they are knit the same amount. So that's just a little bit extra information just on pattern reading. Jeanette says, I haven't used my X-Loom yet and excited to do the pattern. Great gift, great have for gifts. Yeah, I totally. And y'all, I'm telling you, I have had so many people correct me and tell me this is not, why is my lighting changing? Everybody's telling me this is crochet. This is, they're like, you need to stop calling that knitting. It's crochet. And I'm like, no, it's knit. I promise you, it is knit. This is the inside. This is the outside. This is not a crochet stitch. It is a mock crochet stitch. And the fact that, y'all, we uploaded it to Ravelry. Joanne did. Joanne, I haven't told you this. I got a message from somebody who checks for errors. Like they're like an editor on Ravelry. And she writes me privately and she's like, you might want to relabel this one because the crocheters are going to have a hard time finding this because you called it a knitting pattern. And I'm like, and she apparently wrote me before I read it. But she wrote her and noted her mistake. But I was like, okay, thank you that you think it's crochet. But then the next email I got from her was, oops, my mistake. It really is. Crochet really is knit. So anyway, I wrote her back and I was like, thank you so much. I was like, actually, that was the coolest that you thought that, because it just makes me go, I'm so excited then that you thought that. So, anyway, so let's see, what else do I have? I love this hat, Kim says, thank you. Okay. Do you have a preferred way to measure someone's head? Zane says, I typically, like, when I'm I'm sure this is not the best and most accurate, but this is how I do it. I just take my tape measure and, put it around the back of the head like this, kind of where it would fit. And then I go around the front of my head and I do this. And then I usually kind of keep my finger on where the 0 is. And then I just kind of line it up. And then I'll slide my finger over and go like this. And then I look. I'm like, oh, that's 23. Or I'll look in a mirror to kind of catch it before I pop it down, just to make sure I'm on whichever, the correct side of the number. So that one was like slightly almost 23, I think, when I looked in the mirror. The camera here. So this one has a lot of what we call negative ease, meaning you don't need to literally knit it to 23 inches. Joanne might be able to tell me how much negative ease this hat has in it, but basically, like my head's a 23 and the larger size is a 23. And when I put this on, it fits like, it fits, looser. Okay. So technically I can wear this, but I know women have like smaller heads than mine. And I actually like it when it's a little bit more snug. Like this one's kind of loose on me. But I also made it, longer. You can see how I'm not trying to pull it snug down. This is made a little more generous because my husband has a very large head. So I literally made this. Let me just pull it down. This is made for someone with a bigger head. Now you could flip it, you know, and give yourself a little brim. So if you like that look, it's going to have a little bit different look on it on the brim. So if you like something that has a folded thing and you still want that kind of skull cap look like this, you could totally use this size. The women's size, this one, I'm trying hats on for you guys today. This one is a bit more, see, this one is a tighter fit, and I like it because I also like when it shows the stitch. That's another reason why I like this as a snugger hat. So see how it kind of opens up? I really like seeing the stitches open up. However, I also want you to know this is a 5/8 gauge. And this is more of the 3/8 gauge. So think about this, not in the stitches sense. So if you do a 5/8 gauge loom, you're going to get this look here, but this is the overall contained size. Does that make sense? So, okay, I got to snooze this one last time and then I'm going to have to go. So anyway, I hope that helps. Zane, let me know if that answered your question. Mid-ear. Oh yeah. So I assume that the hat is going to kind of go mid-ear. And then if I'm measuring like the length, then I'll just do the 0 here with my finger, and I'll kind of put it at the top of my head, like lined up with my nose, and then kind of right above here. And then I'll just go down and go about mid-ear, or I'll go make sure it covers to the back of my the nape of my neck, okay, or like right just before that, which generally covers, if I do this, the back of my head here, it will make it go down to my earlobe. Let me make sure you can see that. So if I'm here midpoint and I scoot it to the back, I can see if where it hits on me, if I'll like that or not. Generally, mid-ear is good if you like to have a fuller hat, especially if you live in like a colder climate. You might actually want a full ear coverage for a couple of reasons. One, the back of your neck. Two, to keep your ears warm, so you don't have to have an ear warmer or anything like that. But yes, you do want to have some negative ease so that your hat doesn't pop off and it feels snugger and it keeps you warmer. Yeah, so large hat has about 2 inches of negative ease. What percentage is that? Joanne, I'm just curious. I know that there on the KB Looms website, they have a little chart, and it talks about like things using with flat knit and the all-in-one loom. I think they talk about different gauges. Sorry, I don't have that link right now, but I think Isella wrote that. I don't know how far back she wrote it, but I came across it the other day. I was like, oh, this got good information. She had tested a whole bunch of different gauges and stuff and talked about having negative ease in the hat, 15% negative ease. And then it talks about different approximate cast-ons. This was according to her tension and her gauge. So her gauge is not the same as your gauge. And she also used a flat knit stitch. So if you were using like an E-wrap stitch or something, then you'd use far less stitches to cast on because E-wrap is a stretchier stitch. This particular stitch is very similar to E-wrap. In fact, it really is knit through the back loop in all these stitches. It's just the way that we go about it. You might not think about it that way, but it really is like an E-wrap stitch. So you're going to have less stitches to do than you would with the flat knit. All right, yay, I'm doing it right, Zane says. Okay. I wish I had the X Loom, but it's too pricey. They seem like an all-in-one. Yeah, and, you know, I'm never going to be one to justify what a company charges. However, I will give you a couple of pointers about them. One, there's a lot of engineering that goes into that loom. And it's just, this just is. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of engineering. It's not some straight boards. There's more that goes into it. It has these moving parts and pieces. It has more bolts. It has more of all that stuff. It's also handmade. It's not mass produced. So, you know, things that can go into a mold and be injected, and straight pieces that can be cut and things like that, those tend to be on the less expensive side, because it, anyway, because it is. There's a lot of value in the handmade one. And it's also, these are also made in the U.S. by a family. And so it's not more like they want to charge more money. It's just that things that are made in China are cheaper because it's easier to do that kind of thing. It could be argued that some of those things should be even cheaper. But it's hard because the cheaper those go, the more that the people who are doing handmade stuff have to justify how much it is. Does that make sense? So anyway, I'm glad that they're the price they are. They are a little bit more expensive. I will tell you, I purchased my own. Many times when you see me show looms, they have been given to me. All the all-in-one looms that I own, I never paid for. They were all given to me by KB Looms. This X Loom I purchased with my own money. So I just want you to know that. So it is pricey. I have paid the price on it, but I'm actually looking at, oh, should I get some other ones? So to me, it's worth it just to save it up, especially if you really want to do the things that you can do with it. There's just a lot of variety. Plus, that's the reason, I'll tell you this, I am cheap. I will say I am cheap. And the reason why I got the bigger one, the more expensive one, is because I wanted to do more on it rather than have 3 X Looms in this particular gauge. Because now I can do all the things in this gauge that I would have done on multiple looms. So if you're someone who has less storage space and you're like, my husband will only let me get 3 looms, dude, the X looms are pretty rockin'. And in the past, when people told me or asked, hey, hypothetically, Kristen, if you were to have only 1 loom, you know, or you had to pick your top 5 looms or whatever, if you were to have only 1 loom, what would you pick? This would have been my #1 pick. This is still in my basket. If I have a top 5, this is still in my basket because this is easier to manage than the X Loom in that size. If I had this smaller one, yeah, actually I'd be rocking that all-in-one. The only thing I don't like about the all-in-one, it's harder to measure the length. I will be real with you and tell you that. There is a learning curve, so beware about that. All right, so I think that's it for today. I've got to get going. She did come back with us and say it's about 9 to 10% negative ease. So that's just right on par, or right about on par with what Isella was saying. I was going to say 10 would be ideal from what I was thinking. Just from some studying I've done, I think 10%. I'd have to go back and look it up, but I want to say 10% was a number that I had seen before. So that was it. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I hope you have a great day. If you love knitting on needles and you're still in the video, be sure and check out the needle knit version of that. And we have all the parts and pieces to the videos that you need for that. And again, next week, the rest of this crown will happen. So right now, go out and figure out what yarn you want to try and what loom you want to try. And this afternoon, the video for the main stitch will come out. And next week, we'll work on the decreased crown together. I hope you guys have a great day and happy knitting and crochet. Bye, everyone.